Hello, I am Tracy Resvani, the Administrator of the Howard County Office of Consumer Protection. The Howard County Advisory Board on Consumer Protection and the Montgomery County Advisory Committee on Consumer Protection have this year collaborated to bring a series of programs on credit, debt, and other financial literacy topics. With special thanks for the advice from Jason Kratoville, Chairman, and Dennis Golikowski, Vice Chairman of the Fairfax County Consumer Protection Commission, our first program will be in observance of National Get Smart About Credit Day, which falls on every third Thursday in October. The goal of this day is to help guide youth and adults towards better credit habits. Learning about how to build credit, maintain good credit, preparing your credit, and monitoring changes to your credit report are very important. Being financially responsible is an important life skill to have, and it is never too early to start. I will now turn it over to Maurice Valentine from the Montgomery County Office of Consumer Protection.
Thank you, Tracy. Hello, everyone. I'm Maurice Valentine, Outreach and Education Manager here at the Montgomery County Office of Consumer Protection. And it was my pleasure helping to put together this Get Smart About Credit presentation. Just as Tracy mentioned, this inter-county collaboration has brought forth this great slate of credit-focused topics and presenters that we have here for you today. Our first presentation, Understanding Your Credit Report, is being presented by Ingmar Goldson and Christy Kelly. Ingmar?
Hi, my name is Ingmar Goldson. I'm a consumer protection attorney in Rockville, Maryland. I've been practicing for about 10 years, and my practice focuses on consumer protection law. I'm joined here today with another attorney, Christy Kelly. Christy, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christy Kelly. I'm a lawyer at Kelly Guzzo. We are a law firm that practices consumer credit, mortgage servicing abuses in Maryland, DC, and Virginia. I'm looking forward to speak with you today.
All right, so let's get to it. The first slide, how to read a credit report. Christy?
So the first thing you want to do when you're trying to understand what's going on with your credit is to get a copy of your credit report. And where you get a copy of your credit report really matters. You're going to want to go to www.annualcreditreport.com. This is the free site that all three credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, provide to consumers to get a copy of their full credit file. This is important because you want to understand what is being reported about you and who your report has been disseminated to. So it's really important to go to this website to get the information.
All right, Christy, quick question. I know a lot of people pull their reports from Credit Karma and other services like that. Does that work?
So there is information available on those websites, but it is not the best place to get your report because websites like Credit Karma or other websites may only have certain information and it won't have the detail that you will want in your report. For instance, sometimes Credit Karma will not give you inquiry information, so you don't know who's pulling your report. Or if you're trying to understand what a trade line is that you may not recognize, or if you're disputing a payment history, Credit Karma may not have all the information you need to see what is actually being reported about you. And so it's really important if you want to get your full file, which your potential creditors may receive, you really want to go to annualcreditreport.com. And when you get your file, it's important to review each section to make sure that all the information in your file is accurate. You want to make sure your personal identifying information, your name, date of birth, address is correct. You want to look at the accounts. Are these your accounts? And is the payment history correct? And you want to look at the inquiries as well to make sure that your report is only going to the individuals who you have authorized to obtain your report.
All right, thank you. And let's go to the next slide. Understanding the terminology. So first, credit bureaus. There are the big three credit bureaus. These are the credit reporting agencies that you've heard of: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. They're just the biggest credit reporting agencies. Furnishers. You can think of a furnisher as the creditor or debt collector or business that reports information to the credit reporting agency or credit bureau, saying that you owe them money, whether they're reporting that you're on time or not. The business or person reporting the information or furnishing the information to the credit reporting agency is the furnisher. So this could be, a bank, a mortgage lender, or a debt collector or a debt buyer. Consumer reporting agencies. So in addition to the credit bureaus, you have other consumer reporting agencies. These are companies that do background checks, like employment background checks, and tenant screening companies. They also produce these credit reports or consumer reports, and they're legally there to be treated just like your TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian reports. They're all governed by the Fair Credit Reporting Act.
And Ingmar, we have a question from the audience. Do all creditors or debt collectors have to report information to the credit bureaus?
No, they don't have to. There's no law or regulation that says that just because you pay money to a business or a creditor or a debt collector, that they have to report that account to all of the credit reporting agencies or any credit reporting agency.
So our next slide, we're going to talk about potential problems with your credit report. And so this is really important. Once you review your report, you know who the players are. You want to look at your report and see if there are any problems with your report. If there are problems with the accuracy of your credit report, you may have remedies under the Fair Credit Reporting Act that will, one, correct the inaccurate information, and two, could allow you to recover monetary damages for the dissemination of inaccurate information or the failure to correct certain information. And so it's really important to understand what's being reported about you. Common problems that we see, a mixed credit file. So what that means is that some other consumer's information appears on your file. So if your name is Joe Smith and there's another Joe Smith that lives in Maryland, your files may be mixed together. And so you may see one Joe Smith's mortgage on your account and it's not yours. Or if Joe Smith had an eviction record and you apply for an apartment, that Joe Smith's eviction record may prevent you from obtaining the housing you're seeking. So it's really important to get your files to understand what is being reported about you. Identity theft is a big problem. There may be accounts that are not yours, that someone has used your name, your social, and your address to apply for credit in your name. And so it's important to know if there are those accounts on your report. If there are, you need to dispute that information to the credit bureaus and file an identity theft affidavit with the Federal Trade Commission. There are debt collectors that report to the credit bureaus as well. And so you want to be able to review it to make sure it's a valid debt. Like, do you really owe this debt? Or is it a debt that is old and uncollectible? It's important to look at the report to understand what's going on. There's also incorrect payment information that can appear. So a lot of times I see this with mortgages where maybe a consumer is exempt from paying certain property taxes and the mortgage lender is charging them property taxes and causing their payment history to be completely inaccurate, even though they're paying every month. This is something that you can dispute to the credit bureaus and get remedies for yourself if the information is not corrected. There's also inaccurate public record information. If you're applying for employment or housing and a consumer reporting agency provides a report that has either a criminal record, an eviction record, or some other tax record in your name that is not yours, because they don't have, they're mixing you with someone else, or the record was expunged and it shouldn't be appearing, you also may have remedies under the Fair Credit Reporting Act to correct that information and remove it from your background file, and also potentially recover damages as well.
All right, Christy, I have a quick question. How long is a collection account allowed to stay on your credit report?
So generally speaking, from the date of first delinquency, and a negative item can stay on your credit for up to 7 years. And so that's the general rule of thumb. After that 7-year window, you kind of get like a fresh start with negative or adverse information that can appear on your credit.
All right, and I have a question from the audience. If I pay an account in full, how long does it stay on my credit report?
So if you have always paid as agreed and the item is in good standing and there's no negative information, that can stay on your report for as long as you have a credit file. And it is not hurting you. It is good credit information, and that can stay on your report. However, if there is an account with negative information, it can stay on your report for 7 years from the date of first delinquency. And so it can stay there for 7 years. There are some situations when you're applying for like a higher mortgage loan or employment at a higher level where negative information could potentially stay longer, but the general rule of thumb is 7 years. And sometimes with bankruptcies or tax liens, it can be longer. It could be up to 10 years.
All right, thank you.
So the next slide is how to protect your rights. And so when you find inaccurate information, what you need to do is you need to put a dispute in writing. This is preferable to the online method because you're able to provide more information to ensure that both the credit bureaus and the potential furnisher have the information they need to remove the inaccurate reporting. It's really important to send your dispute by certified mail return receipt, because that way you can confirm that it was sent to the credit bureaus. And if they fail to respond, you may also have some remedies at that point. I strongly encourage everyone not to sign up for credit monitoring, particularly with Experian or the other credit bureaus, because there are arbitration provisions, and that can really seriously impact your ability to correct items if they're not resolved through the dispute process. Experian is very aggressive about compelling arbitration, and so you do not need to sign up for these accounts. I always tell my clients, if you have an account, to deactivate it so that we don't have to deal with arbitration, because if you have a claim, you want to be in court because you'll be able to get better remedies and a quicker remedy as well. Under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, you can also obtain either a credit freeze, or you could put a fraud alert on your file if you're the victim of identity theft, so that creditors know that there are accounts opened without your knowledge, and there's a heightened standard that they should have when they see the fraud alert. A credit freeze will prevent anyone from obtaining your credit file. So if you do intend to apply for credit, it's important to, you'll have to lift the freeze and keep your PIN number so that you'll be able to get the credit when you need it.
All right, I have another question from the audience. This one says, my grandmother, who was retired and on fixed income of mostly Social Security, was solicited by a credit repair specialist to fix her credit. She pays him $100 a month for his services, which I do not understand. What should I do? Where can we go for help?
So I am a strong advocate that credit repair is no good. And so particularly in that situation, the grandmother does not need credit repair, and she should save that $100 a month. She should immediately cancel the credit repair, because if she has a valid dispute to the credit bureaus, there are lawyers that will take these cases on a contingency basis where she wouldn't have to pay anything. And if things are not corrected, she would actually be able to recover money from them. Credit repair is just a way for people to make money off people that don't understand their rights in the credit reporting process, in my opinion. It is largely not successful and can really hinder your ability if there's something inaccurate in your file. The credit bureaus don't take credit repair disputes seriously. They consider them frivolous. And so you're not really even getting the benefit of the reinvestigation requirements under the Fair Credit Reporting Act if you're using a credit repair specialist. So to me, and I think Ingmar, you would agree, like credit repair is generally just a waste of money. And so I would encourage the grandmother there to cancel the service.
I agree 100%. Do not pay these credit repair people. Do not do it. All right, let's go to the next slide. Common problems. Similar name, similar address. Christy touched on this on an earlier slide, but to go a little bit more into depth, if your name is Jack Smith and your son, Jack Smith Jr., lives with you and you both have credit, there's just a much larger chance that one account will show up on the other person's credit report when it should be on the other credit report, or that the whole file will be mixed. So just look out for those issues if you're in that situation where you share a name or have a similar name with somebody and you live in the same address. And this also could become an issue if you have no idea who the other person is, but they happen to share your name. So it's just something to look out for. Public records. So these are things like judgments in court. So public records show up on your credit report by businesses scraping this information from the court system. And it's not done with any sort of particular care. And it often ends up in errors on your credit report. So if you assume you don't have any issues with public records, don't just skip over that section on your credit report. Always pay attention. Who is looking at your credit report? So you can find out who is looking at your credit report generally by looking at the credit pulls. You want to pay particular attention to the hard inquiries, because these are the situations where somebody or some business saw your whole credit report, not just a smaller amount for the soft inquiries, the promotional inquiries. So you want to look at especially the hard inquiries to see who is looking at your credit report. Now, sometimes a business or a debt collector will show up as a hard inquiry, and you might think, I didn't give them permission to look at my credit report. It's not always that simple as, you giving them authorization to look at your credit report. They really just need a legitimate business reason to look at your credit report. But if you see a hard pull and you don't understand what it is, and you really think there's an issue there, it can't hurt to reach out to an attorney or an advocate to try to figure out what's going on there. If somebody shows up on your credit report under the hard inquiry and they shouldn't be there, and they're looking at your report and they shouldn't have got access to your credit report, there are available remedies under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So you do want to reach out to an attorney in that situation. All right, debt collectors. Debt collectors, like I said, they will show up on your credit report too. Be careful with debt collectors, because some of the more unscrupulous debt collectors, they'll get an account to collect on behalf of their client. They don't particularly care if you really owe the money. And one good way to make sure somebody pays that debt is to report it on the credit report, or to threaten that they're going to report it on their credit report. That's because you don't want a delinquency on your credit report. A delinquency can keep you from being able to buy a home. It makes the cost of borrowing much higher. It could keep you from accessing the credit market. It's very damaging, and the debt collectors know that. So don't let them strong arm you into paying money that you don't owe. Reach out to an attorney if that happens.
So Ingmar, if you have a mixed file or a public judgment or any of these other problems, and you're just a consumer, and what if you can't afford a lawyer? What do you do?
So good question. First, I'm not going to speak for other lawyers, but lots of consumer attorneys like me, like Christy, we will take these cases on contingency. And that's where you don't have to pay anything up front. Some lawyers will only take upfront costs. Some lawyers will only take a small amount up front with some hybrid contingency. Generally, consumer lawyers try to be affordable or free to their clients. If you can't get access to a lawyer, or if it's taking you too long, don't just do nothing though. Send a dispute letter. What I recommend to people is Google FTC credit reporting dispute letter. These are good samples of dispute letters. And that's the example that you want to use. There's a lot of bad information out there on the internet. If you just say dispute letter, if you just Google dispute letter samples, you might get a dispute letter that some scammy credit repair person is putting out there. You have to be careful. So that's why I say go to the FTC website or Google FTC credit reporting dispute letter. So that's how I would recommend you go about sending a dispute letter. So contact an attorney, send dispute letters.
But Ingmar, you and I, we both take these cases on a contingency. And so is it your recommendation if someone has one of these issues, they should reach out to a lawyer as soon as they can?
Absolutely. Reach out to a lawyer. First of all, sending dispute letters often does not work. Debt collectors especially don't particularly care if they're reporting the correct information. And it's bad for them. It's bad for their bottom line to remove a trade line from your credit report. So often you need an attorney to fix these problems. So reach out to an attorney as soon as possible. Absolutely.
Ingmar, we have a question from the audience. This consumer applied for a car loan at the dealership and was approved for a loan. However, the next time she checked her credit, there were 10 inquiries on her credit report for the week after she bought the car. What impact do these inquiries have on her credit?
So the short answer is that they will impact her credit, but only as one hard pull. You can go to one dealership, and as a result of going to that one dealership, you get like 10 credit pulls. That's because they use a system that where you fill out a credit application and they send that credit application out to many creditors. And people go car shopping. They might go to 5 or 6 dealerships. So the scoring companies know this. And if they see a bunch of credit pulls within a short period of time for one thing, for purchasing a car or even a home, because people do that with home purchases as well, all of these credit pulls will only impact your credit score as if it is one pull.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move on to the next and last slide. Major credit score factors. All right. So as you can see on this slide, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 major categories that affect your credit score. And this isn't necessarily according to the credit reporting agencies. There's a separate company, even though it's the same industry, separate company out there, FICO, that calculates your credit score. And this is what they say affects your credit score. So the biggest category is payment history. That's just how consistently you have made on-time payments. If you make mostly on-time payments and you miss just one, payment and you have a 30-day late, it's going to affect your score, but after a while, your score will come back up. Don't panic. But if you miss a lot of payments and you have lots of late payments, that's going to be a huge hit to your credit score. The next is amount you owe. That's exactly what it sounds like. That's just how much you've borrowed, how much you owe. Even with revolving credit, what is your balance on your credit card? The next one is length of your credit history. How long have you been in this credit system? Lots of young people who go to college don't have any credit history. So that means they're not going to have a high credit score, which makes sense. If they don't have any history, why would why would they be looked at as somebody who is credit worthy enough to get a large loan? Just don't tell the student loan companies that. The next one, new credit you apply for. So this is basically the hard inquiries. As I just discussed about the issue with that came from the audience with the hard dealer and all those hard inquiries that can show up on your credit report, hard inquiries do affect your credit score. The reason they affect your credit score is because it's an indication to creditors out there that you are there trying to borrow money. So a couple of hard inquiries here and there aren't really going to hurt your credit necessarily. But if you have lots of hard inquiries all of a sudden, it could be an indication that you may be struggling financially. And that's why your credit score will go down if that happens. And the last category is types of credit you use. This is just the types of credit you use. This category basically means, okay, what kind of debt do you have? Do you only have student loan debt? Do you have student loan debt, credit card debt, and a car loan? How evenly is your debt spread out? And that one affects your credit the least, along with the new credit you apply for. Now, if any of this confuses you, especially that last one, and you're thinking, okay, how does types of credit you use, how does that affect score? If it confuses you a little bit and you don't have the complete picture, that's because the formula that they use to calculate your credit score is actually an industry secret. So they'll tell us this much about what affects your credit score, and it's really a good guideline. But just if you're worried that the types of credit that you use isn't exactly perfect to get the maximum credit score, I wouldn't worry about that too much, because there are people online who say they know the secrets and they'll try to sell those secrets to you, and they're all lying. Okay, so that's just something to look out for.
So Ingmar, if I wanted to learn the secrets, and there are people selling them, it's your recommendation not to purchase the booklets or pay for the training classes?
No, it will be a waste of money. Don't do it. Don't do it. There are some nonprofits out there who will help you with your finances. And that's who I recommend. If people really want help increasing their credit score and they're totally lost, you can talk to a lawyer like me. You could go to nonprofits. There are things you can do for free. Because like I said, those secrets don't really exist beyond the people who are scoring your credit. So these people who are selling booklets and selling these secrets, they're lying. Don't pay them any money.
Okay. We have one final question from the audience. This consumer wants to know how they would find out if someone is accessing their credit file, and if they learn that someone is, how can they prevent them from doing so?
All right, so you want to pull your credit report, and as you said earlier, Christy, it's important, very important, that you pull your credit report from annualcreditreport.com, because those reports will be accurate, especially with respect to the hard credit pulls. So you pull your credit report, look at the hard inquiries, and those are the people who are pulling your credit report and looking at your credit report. Okay, now, so if somebody's looking at your credit report and you think they shouldn't have access to it and they shouldn't be looking at your credit report, I recommend contacting an attorney immediately. And if generally you want to stop people from pulling your credit, you can always get a credit freeze. You can get a credit freeze that makes it harder for people to pull your credit report in the first place.
Thank you.
All right, so I think that does it for these for this presentation and these slides. On this slide, you can see my contact information and Christy Kelly's contact information. If you think that you need an attorney because you have an issue with your credit report, or there's someone looking at your credit report that really shouldn't be, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I'm sure Christy wouldn't mind if you reach out to her as well. I'm in Maryland. I know that Christy practices in Virginia. Do you practice anywhere else, your firm?
Yeah, we practice Virginia, Maryland, and DC.
In Maryland and DC? Well, there you have it. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ingmar and Christy. Now that you see that you may have work to do with fixing your credit, what are those next steps? To tell you more about repairing your credit, we have Sandy Rains and Kathleen Hyland. Sandy?
Hi, my name is Sandy Rains, and I'm a community outreach manager with CCCSMD. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the CCCSMD, that is Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Maryland and Delaware. We're a nonprofit, HUD-approved counseling agency, and we are providing services throughout the United States to various individuals and communities. And we've been doing this since 1966. We're a member of the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, and all of our financial advocates are certified through the NFCC. And there are several of us that hold the HUD Housing Counseling certifications as well. Our goal at CCCSMD is to provide you financial education and give you individual counseling on topics such as identity theft, budgeting, credit reporting, and we're wanting to make sure that you have the information so you can have good economic stability through financial advocacy and the counseling that we provide. Now, when it comes to debt that someone may have, we do have various programs, and our services are free to the individual. So there's no reason for you not to take advantage of these services. We have debt management programs, but most we want to make sure that people understand how important their credit is and how important it is to build credit. Whether you are simply trying to build credit, or you just want to fix issues, or you need some guidance with what's happening with your credit report, we can help you doing that by pulling a soft credit report, and it's not going to affect your score, but it helps us look at what's going on with your financial picture. It's not going to hurt your score. It's not going to have any hindrance to you whatsoever. But all of the factors in your credit report do matter. We are here to provide solutions to not only help your credit and get it resolved if there are any issues or blemishes, but we want to make sure that you're someone that understands how to maintain good credit and what it should actually look like. We do have debt management programs and other programs. We have a variety of services that we can offer you, but we have one that's called the DMP, and that stands for Debt Management Program. And it actually works by combining individual creditor monthly payments. So you have one single monthly payment, and that in turn allows you to focus more on other financial goals that you have and releasing stress that you may have because you have an influx of credit debt. The three benefits for the DMP program would be your DMP monthly payment will typically be lower than the combination of all your payments that you have now. And this will result in immediate financial help to you and release some of that stress, and also being budget friendly for you now as well because you have reduced payments. Your creditors could lower your interest rates, And sometimes that is done significantly to you. One of the things about the debt management program is that those particular accounts are closed. Our initiative is to help you focus on getting out of debt, but repairing your credit report. Now, some of the creditors also, they might be willing to re-age your accounts. And for those that have been past due, which brings those accounts current. So that looks great on your credit report. It eliminates possibly late and over limit fees, because a lot of people get into those situations. And we all know that past due payments and late fees add up a lot, and over limit fees to that balance. So there you start the beginning process of improving your scores overall. When it comes to repairing and rebuilding your credit report, it's really a matter of time. And as time passes, your score gets better, as long as you're focused on what you need to do so you don't fall back in another situation that's stressful for you. One of the things that we definitely want to point out is that when someone has quite a bit of debt, and especially debt that goes into collections, or they're in charge-offs and they go to collections, that information tends to be public knowledge, and that will in turn put you at risk and becoming maybe a target of not only scammers, but also for profit credit repair companies and debt settlement companies. All of those particular companies, they can see your information if they're doing a due diligence as part of their job. So the involvement with these types of businesses, they can not only have very serious negative impact on your credit score, but also get you into more debt from promises that they make that they may not be able to follow through with. I've had situations with customers and they sign an agreement and nothing happens for a year or so later, and all the while those companies are still taking payment monthly from that consumer. So they have more debt now. So you have to be very careful about who you're working with. There are 3 major credit reports that I'm sure all of you are aware of: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Normally, every year we get 1 free credit report every 12 months. So it doesn't have to be a calendar year. You want to make sure you take advantage of those, because those are the 3 major ones: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. You go to their website, or the best website to go to is annualcreditreport.com. You will be able to order it if you download the PDF form. There's a phone number that you can call to order it, or you can order it right online and do one at a time. There are security questions there because they want to make sure they're giving the credit report to the person that is has the desire to have it, and it's you. They're verifying your identity by these security questions of things that you've dealt with in the past. It may be verifying your address, an old phone number, things like that. But just FYI, through the end of December of this year, due to COVID, there was opportunity for us to now get our free credit reports weekly. Now, not that everybody would get them weekly, but at least if you wanted to, you could go in and look at them once every month. But you are able, through the end of December 31st of 2023, pull up a weekly credit report from Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion at no cost to you. Now, they don't give us our credit score unless we pay for it. But one of the main things first is finding out what's in your credit report. I've had my identity stolen twice. And thank goodness it really didn't hurt me with my credit report, because I was vigilant in pulling up my reports and staying on top of my credit because of my past career in banking. So it gave me more peace of mind, knowing that now I can do that more than the usual, but always take advantage of your free credit report. Now I'm going to turn this over to Kat, and she's going to fill you in a lot of information about how to do credit repair.
Hi, my name is Kat Highland, and I'm an Assistant Attorney General with the Maryland Office of the Attorney General. I work in the Consumer Protection Division. My job is to enforce Maryland law against companies that may try to scam people for credit repair, debt settlement services, etc. And today I want to talk about those particular types of companies and scams you might see. I want to talk about credit repair companies and some warning signs, and then debt settlement companies and some warning signs. And throughout what I have to say, I can't stress enough, please take some of the advice that Sandy just offered. Take all of it, that would be best. But she and her organization represent actors who have the consumer, your best interest in mind. And the programs they offer are legitimate, and they are also programs that can help you rebuild credit safely and help you confront debt and be more knowledgeable about what resources you have out there and how to get yourself on a good family budget going forward. So on the flip side of that, there are businesses that hold themselves out as though they can help you and really cannot. So one type of business is a credit repair business. Now in Maryland, we have laws such as the Credit Services Businesses Act that protect your rights as a consumer. And federally, there's something called the Credit Repair Organizations Act. So you have a strong set of laws that should guide you if you ever have a problem with one of these companies. But here are some warning signs. A credit repair company may ask you to pay fees up front. That's strictly prescribed by federal law. A company might not tell you your legal rights. They may ask you to stop contacting the credit reporting agencies, which, as you just heard from Sandy, is a huge red flag, because that's the best way for you to really understand what is being communicated about you and any debt or revolving credit you may have. Such a company may claim that it can dispute accurate negative information. Now, I know many of us have been in situations where we wish something wasn't on our credit report, but in fact it is. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. And companies that promise to take off the truth are often misleading you as to what they can actually do. They may be able to knock it off for a short period of time, such as 30 days, if they file what's called a dispute letter on your behalf, and then the other company doesn't respond. But chances are that information will make its way back onto your credit report and your score will be affected once again. This is a common scheme that some companies use to gain your trust, but it's only a short-term benefit. Finally, a company may encourage you to dispute accurate information on your own. This ties into what I was just explaining about sending a letter out to dispute something that's the truth. You want to stay away from any company that purports to make these sorts of promises, and you want to look into them when you see these warning signs. The other type of company is the debt settlement service, the debt settlement company. And there are similar warning signs about companies that claim that they can help you wipe out all of your debt. In my experience, a lot of these companies require you to pay fees up front as well, but they also make promises that by paying them one lump fee, that they will distribute everything perfectly. And in reality, they end up damaging your credit. When companies claim to do this, you should take a very close look at the paperwork they're providing, because in the nitty-gritty of the paperwork they may have a list of where your money is actually going. And if you take a close look, it may be going to money processors, it may be going to their own pockets, and there may only be a small amount of money that's being paid to a debt that you may have that you're trying to confront. Now, a lot of these cases can be very sad for us as attorneys to see, because we know that consumers are just trying to confront their debt, and we know that consumers are just trying to do what's financially responsible with the idea that it will help them get towards a bigger financial goal, like a house or a new car, or maybe even saving money for school for themselves or a child. And by thinking that you're confronting and hiring something like a debt settlement company and hiring the wrong company, you may end up making your financial situation worse. What could be going on behind the scenes is that by not telling you about your legal rights, such companies might actually be taking your money for their own pockets and not paying anything towards your creditors. And as a result, your trade lines on your credit reports are reported as negative by the original credit cards or auto loan company you may have a contract with. And that negative information will continue to build up. You may have debts charged off at that point, and some of these debts might be sent into litigation. So when you hear of a company that tries to put any kind of barrier between you and your own credit report and your own creditors, then that should be a huge red flag. When they say to stop paying your bills, those bills aren't going to be paid unless you know for a fact that money is being sent to the correct place. So in addition, if you're told to ignore any kind of official communication from a law firm or from a court in particular, anything that has a state or local or federal court, whatever your court system paperwork may look like, then don't follow that advice. Go to the court if you can, or contact the court if you can, or contact an attorney and have them review whatever the communication is. Despite what you may have signed with the debt settlement company, if someone tells you to turn your back on legal process, they are misleading you and they're keeping you in the dark. And I've seen this happen all too often with debt settlement companies. If they say they're going to refer you over to a legal division, that's also something where you need to be very hands-on and make sure that your rights are being protected. The court process and processes with your creditors are going to go on in spite of what this company is communicating to you. And unless you're on the ground and know firsthand that your rights are being protected, then there's a high chance that they're not. Finally, often consumers will enter into a debt settlement contract and they think they're going to pay a rate that they can afford, such as $50 or $100 a month. And then as soon as one of their debts is in default, there's an offer from that creditor to come forward and settle it for maybe half of what the debt's worth or on a payment plan of some sort. And you may get a call from a debt settlement company saying, we now want you to pay more money per month than you thought you originally agreed to pay. And at that point, you may be working with a debt settlement company that, again, doesn't have your interests in mind. And you really need to follow your own money to see where is it going, what am I paying for, and how much of it is actually going towards the account I thought I was paying down. Again, I cannot stress this enough. Look at things, look at options such as the debt management program instead of a debt settlement service if you see any of these warning signs. In addition,
I just wanted to interject something for everyone that when you're dealing with a reputable agency and with the debt management programs, you will still, or you should still get a statement that shows the payments are being made. So that's one way for you to be able to control or view the control of your payment setup. And having verification your payments are being made to these companies by statements that you will still be receiving once you've signed that agreement.
That's an excellent point. You need to be accountable and hold the company accountable for how your money is being spent, and they ought to be communicating with you regularly in the form of a monthly statement. And now let's talk about common scams. People who provide mortgage assistance relief services, credit services, money transmission services, and debt management services are generally prohibited from doing certain things, such as collecting upfront fees from consumers. But before giving you some warnings on the scams you might encounter, I want to provide you with some information about a key tool that you as a consumer can use to check for valid and legitimate businesses. People who provide certain types of debt consolidation services are required to be licensed in many states for example, in Maryland, by the Office of the Commissioner of Financial Regulation in the Maryland Department of Labor. Before entering into contracts with any business that you may be suspicious of or just otherwise want to verify, you can check the NMLS database. This is www.nmlsconsumeraccess.org. And if your state requires a business to be licensed to perform any of these types of services, including just the general credit repair services and debt settlement services that we're talking about, then they ought to be listed in a database such as this. Or you can contact your state attorney general's office for information about other ways in which their registration might be captured and where that information is listed. I want to tell everyone about 4 common scams and then give you some tips on what to do if you are scammed. The first is file segregation. File segregation is when a company or individual offers to give you what's called an employer ID number to use in place of your social security number when you apply for credit. It's illegal for companies to do this, and it's illegal for consumers to obtain one to use in place of their social security number. So avoid that if you get a suggestion from a business, and again, that would be a huge red flag. Second, a business might offer to create a brand new identity for you. Not only is this very dangerous and messy for your future credit reports because it can lead to a mixed file, but it is also not allowed. If someone claims that they can wipe the past away and create a new persona for you in the form of a credit report, that is false and also something that you should avoid. The third scam is the idea of trade line renting. This is when you pay for an authorized user or a secondary account holder's status on a credit card, allowing the trade line to show up on your credit reports. This doesn't repair any negative information on your reports, but by adding a positive trade line, your credit score could go up. There's nothing wrong with doing this if you are the trade line status co-holder of a partner's credit card or someone in your family. But if someone offers to sell you this as a way to improve your score, don't accept that offer. That's another red flag. And that also puts you in danger because you don't know whether or not what they're selling you is going to be a good line of credit or a bad line of credit. And if that other trade line tanks, then so will your credit score. Finally, there's a category I like to call lawyer posers. I'm going to illustrate this with an example. In March of 2017, the Consumer Protection Division in Maryland announced a settlement with 5 California law firms and an individual named Mandy Purewell, who was the owner of the firms. The Attorney General alleged that the firms illegally collected advanced fees from the consumers, like we mentioned before, huge red flag, and claimed they were going to settle consumer debts, but in fact did no work to help anyone's files and just kept the money. The key thing to notice in this example is that these were California attorneys. They were not attorneys from Maryland where this action was brought. Many states have similar laws that allow exceptions for attorneys who perform debt settlement work. The attorney, at least in our state and in many other states, may have to be from your state. They can't be advising you on a state law when they don't practice in that state. It's just not legal. So if someone comes to you from a different state and says, I can help you improve your credit score, they're often trying to trick you with the idea that they are an attorney. And that's another red flag. Since we mentioned upfront fees, I'll just also share with you that in August of 2022 in Maryland, we had yet another action where the Attorney General announced that he'd issued a final order against 2 individuals and their businesses for more illegal debt settlement services. In this case, the individuals and their businesses claimed that they could consolidate all of your debt and help you pay it down, but they didn't promise to provide services. They took advanced fees, can't stress that red flag enough either, and claimed that they were running a debt liquidation program. They said they would save people hundreds of thousands of dollars and pay off consumers' outstanding debts in a shorter time frame than the original loan terms and improve credit scores. So if you hear of any business that's purporting to do that and has any of the red flags that I've mentioned and wants these advanced fees, then just know that you can turn to your state attorney general, or that there may be a problem with this business and that you should really think hard before entering into any kind of contract with a business that claims that they can do that. What should you do if you are scammed? Well, first, contact your state attorney general. the more you report on this information, the more we can collect information to help you, and we can also try to bring enforcement actions either locally or on the federal level. Report the scam to the FTC for the same reasons. Also, check out their website and your local attorney general's website for any resource information that they may have available to protect your credit report. Immediately change any personal passwords that you may have given a scammer. This happens a lot in senior fraud cases where, because the creditor has access to a senior citizen who may be retired and is sitting at home with close access to their computer, they attempt to get your business by virtue of getting your internet passwords. So change those promptly. And as I tell my parents when they have questions about this, just turn off your computer in general too, until you know that you've contacted your credit card companies and that you're safe again. Alert the credit bureaus, ask for a security freeze, which you've heard about from prior presenters. Alert your creditors, and finally get credit counseling through an agency such as CSMD. Finally, what can you do for your credit? Here are a couple of tips on what you can do to be conscious of your credit and be a smart consumer. You can monitor your own credit report, pay your bills on time, get a secured line of credit, consider consulting a bankruptcy attorney. In times like these, there are good opportunities to do things like challenge student loan debt. There are more opportunities available than were in the past, and a bankruptcy attorney could be instrumental in helping you identify the right advice. Use a budgeting app or spreadsheets to keep track of your finances, work on building your savings, and finally reach out to a certified nonprofit organization for help. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at the Maryland Office of the Attorney General.
Thank you for watching. Did you enjoy this video? You can find more consumer education videos like this one on both our website, www.montgomerycountymd.gov/OCP, as well as on our YouTube page at ConsumerWise. Should you need assistance from the Montgomery County Office of Consumer Protection, you can drop us an email at consumerprotection@montgomerycountymd.gov, as well as using the MC311 phone system. Well, take care and see you soon.